Done by Noon podcast. Today, Dan Go is joining us, and we're going to talk about achieving high performance health when you are an entrepreneur.
You're listening to the Done by Noon podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to achieve more by noon than others in a full day. Serial entrepreneur Dave Ruel and his co-host Chris Lopez share the strategies that will help you optimize your productivity, performance, and lifestyle so you can reach new heights in your business and life. So if you're ready to become the most efficient and effective entrepreneur you know, you're in the right place. Welcome to the show.
This episode is brought to you by the Epic Planner, the first planner made for the entrepreneurial brain. It's easy to fill your day with busy work. You feel like you're getting a lot done. But if you don't make time for bigger projects, you're just spinning your wheels and hurting your business. The Epic Planner is backed by a complete system to strategically plan your next 90 days. Break down projects into actionable bite-sized pieces. Optimize your work week and implement sustainable performance habits in the process. To learn more about the Epic Planner, go to www.effic.co. That's EFFIC.co. And use coupon code PODCAST at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Now, back to Dave and Chris.
Dave and Chris and Dan Go.
Yo.
Big Papa.
That was one of my favorite planners of all time. Yours. The Afik planner.
But you would make it done you make it done by 2?
Yeah, done by 2, not done by noon. I need a little longer. I need a little bit more buffer time.
You are in Costa Rica right now. So before I introduce you to our listeners, Dan, so you're in Costa Rica, just like Chris, you're muted, by the way. I see you're still muted. Costa Rica, but I asked you before recording how far you were from Chris, and you're like 7 hours. So I didn't realize Costa Rica was that huge.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to get anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just mountains everywhere.
No roads.
I always so here in Costa Rica, like the distance from where I am to the main city is San Jose is the same distance from Toronto to Niagara Falls. So that's kind of how I wrap my head around it. So when I drive from Toronto to Niagara Falls, it takes like an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, 2 hours at the most if there's traffic. We just got back from San Jose last weekend, and it took us 6 hours to get home.
Yeah. It's like literally one road, and you're hoping the road keeps up because it's not just a road. It's sometimes like a dirt road, right? There's the highway cuts off, and then you have to actually do these like off-road type of maneuvers to get to the spot that you want to get to. So like literally Chris and I, it would take maybe like 3 hours to get to each other if it was in Toronto because we had that super highway.
Yeah.
But yeah, down here it's I wouldn't even want to make that drive. It's treacherous, man.
Well,
it's like
when I moved here, that was my first order of business. Like I had to really find a solid SUV because like we live up in a mountain, but then it wasn't only that. It was just also the ride to San Jose. So
yeah.
And you have to be careful, of all the insects crossing the road. And how do you guys do with the cars? Like, do you have bulletproof windshields? Because these things are like baseballs.
Yeah.
They're humongous.
It's getting worse now too because rainy season is coming, and all the creepy crawlers are coming out right now, man. They're all coming out in full force. But I don't know. I get someone to transport me, man. I don't drive down here. I'm a little foo-foo like that. I don't get no one. I get someone else to drive me around and take me from one place to another, and I just stay there for as long as I can.
So Dan, let's talk about actually you're in Costa Rica right now, and I want to talk a little bit about your story and how your business actually has evolved quite a bit over the years. You and I have known each other for a long time. You had a very successful fitness facility. Well, you had actually multiple locations in the Greater Toronto area, and you moved now to more of a coaching model. Now you coach, mentor entrepreneurs on their health, so high performers, people who have fast-paced lifestyles and busy and who are busy entrepreneurs, and you help them take their health back in check. And now that allowed you also to move to Costa Rica. You're there for the winter. Like, how's that? What's the plan now?
Well,
Costa Rica?
we got here in December because our whole thing was we actually sold our house and we
Mm.
decided to stay here for about 3 months and then go back to Toronto. But unfortunately, with everything going on in Toronto right now, we basically said we're just going to stay here until things blow over in Toronto, essentially, or things get better because right now they're not so good with the COVID situation. But yeah, we want to spend the winter down here. This has been a vision of mine for a very long time. But when I had the fitness facility, I mean, when you have this like physical brick and mortar location, it kind of like, I don't want to say that it holds you back because it never stopped me from traveling, for months at a time, but it still locks you into a certain area in the world, right? Because you still have to deal with the leases, like you still have a physical location. So after I sold that gym, that was like December of 2018, I believe. I decided to go full force online and ask myself, I was like, okay, well, if there's anyone I wanted to work with in the entire world, who exactly would it be? And I had every single one of my friends is an entrepreneur, and I love talking to my friends, obviously. So I was just like, you know what? It's a no brainer. I want to help these guys get into the best shape possible. And and the reason I kind of like went into it was because I used to go to these masterminds, right? We went to the fitness mastermind, so everyone was like jacked and all fit. But when we go to business masterminds, you see the dichotomy, right? Like you will have, it's almost like an extreme. You'll have people that will like take care of themselves to the nth degree, but you will have a big subset of people who are skinny fat, obese, who are almost like trading their health for their bodies the entire time. So my whole thing is like, you're my friend. I don't want to ever see you like this ever again. So that's why I'm dedicated myself to focus on helping entrepreneurs with their bodies and health.
What you see, what you see entrepreneurs do, like the top mistakes you see them doing.
Yeah. Well, number one, let's get to the foundational mindset, which is their idea that they don't have enough time to get in shape. When the reality is that getting in shape actually buys you more time to build more business. So they have these built-in excuses, and some of them are actually foundational. They are traumas that they have experienced since they were children too, right? So a lot of them that I find, not every single one, but I would say 80, 90% of them deal with some form of emotional eating, stress eating that they actually go into. Or we could say like functioning alcoholic syndrome, which is like they drink like maybe like 3 drinks a night. They're like, I'm okay, whatever it is. But they do that like 7 times, a week, 24/7, or not 24/7, but 365 days. And I just see that a lot of entrepreneurs in general, number one is they have these almost like habits from before that they've been feeding into, that they've been numbing out to a certain degree. They have these emotions that they're kind of numbing out, whether it's stress, whether it's anger, whether they're celebrating things with happiness or whatever it is that they use with food and alcohol. The second thing is that there's just a ton of misinformation out there. The internet is supposed to make us more informed, but you have people telling everyone to go keto or to actually go vegan or to do this, that, and the third in order to lose weight. When the reality is that, Chris, we all know that it's actually about the most simple, boring shit that you can ever think about that is going to get you into the best shape that you can ever be in, right? It's not about like shining blue, red light on your balls or anything like that. It's actually about, it's like, oh, I'm going to boost testosterone by shining this red light. It's like, no, dude, get some sleep, eat good food, and go lift.
There's red lights for balls that boost testosterone. Hold on,
Yeah.
pardon my.
It's a biohack, man. It's a biohack.
But that's another thing. Like, Dan, do you feel like, because Chris and I talk about it all the time. We talked about it multiple times, but I feel like entrepreneurs are so extreme that they will bring like biohacking to an extreme, thinking that it will compensate for their shitty health habits. And like always, I feel like they're collecting a bunch of hacks, but actually it does nothing really to their health in general.
They drive me crazy sometimes, I'll tell you right now, because the same things that they do with their health are not the same things they do with their business, right? So in their business, they're actually hunkering down on the foundational aspects, and they're actually focused on doing the, I guess you could say, best practice, or just running it in the way where you're not chasing shiny objects. You're not trying to look for hacks. You're not trying to look for shortcuts. You're actually committed to doing the work, right? Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to their body, let's shine a red light on their balls because I want to boost testosterone when they should really be hitting the gym and going to the gym, lifting heavy for like 3-4 days a week. Okay, let me take this supplement. Let me take the stack of supplements right here because I want to burn fat and I want to optimize my body while at the same time they're eating processed food, pizza, and drinking alcohol on a regular basis. So it's like they are so willing to do the work inside of their business, but when it comes to their body, they are looking for shortcuts. And then these shortcuts, as you guys know, it sets them even further back because then they're looking for the next shortcut. Then they're looking for the next red light thing that's going to shine on their face, in order to, burn more fat across like the whatever it is, But they are looking for these shortcuts when the reality is they should actually hunker down and set forth on the foundational things. And one of the things that I've actually seen a lot with entrepreneurs is, and this is just an example, it's like, okay, so testosterone therapy, right? An entrepreneur who gets diagnosed with low testosterone from whatever doctor, the doctor's going to say, oh, you need to take testosterone, without necessarily trying to fix things in a natural way before that actually happens. So they shoot up the T, they're feeling great, and then they're going back to their old habits and they're wondering, okay, so why am I still gaining weight? Why do I still look flabby? Why do I still have energy? I have testosterone, but why am I still the same shape as I was before? It's because testosterone was not the answer. It was actually about doing the work. So I got on a rant a little bit right there, but like I said, it's like if you commit to doing the work and actually being disciplined and actually hunkering down on the simple things, then guess what? You're going to be in the most optimal shape. You're going to be above average. You're going to be in the top 10% of people in terms of like how they look and how they feel.
I feel the mentality, the extreme mentality of entrepreneurs is actually, it's great to have like that, that velocity, that ferocity, in your business and everything. And it's good to have it too, in some ways with your health. But the problem is that always looking for these shortcuts, always looking to do things faster, but not like sustainably. And that's like, I don't know about you, like for me, that's what I bring to my business. That's my vision of business, is being able to do that for a long time. I'm not interested in tactics and shortcuts. I'm all here because I love the work. It's like, how do you learn to love that as much, putting as much effort into your body and your health overall. And I really like what you said about like how much work do you do with that, because you work now with entrepreneurs, and how much work do you do on their mental game, like versus the physical game?
That's like 50% of it, right? So there's a couple sides to the mental game. Number one is always going to be how they see themselves inside of their minds, right? So when you lose a bunch of weight, and people have gone through this already, they've lost like 20 to 30 pounds, they've lost a bunch of weight only to gain it back by self-sabotaging themselves, right? By just basically like rewarding sobriety with alcohol. They lost like a bunch of weight. Okay, well, cool. I'm going to have this donut and I'm going to go crazy with it, right? When it comes to just like helping entrepreneurs, it's like we want to make sure that number one, they understand the three parts to the mind, which is our conscious, subconscious, self-image. That's like the three. That's like the triangle of how they're going to actually control their minds. And then afterwards, what we do is we try to like maneuver them to actually seeing themselves in a much better self-image, in a leaner body with the actual weight that they're trying to attain. So that's the first part. It's actually kind of maneuvering and kind of molding that self-image. And the second part is digging into the emotional aspects of what they're doing and why they're doing it. So if they go on a bender, and they've lost a bunch of weight, they go on a bender, they drink and they go crazy and whatever it is, we got to ask them, okay, so why do you think that happened? Like you were making such progress on here, and then you decided to do something like drastic to like really fuck it up, so what exactly is going on here? Where is the self-sabotage coming from? And then you can't just get it out of like one question. You got to, like, as a coach, we have to dig with these guys. So a lot of times, actually one example would be like, one of my clients would always eat when he was working long hours and long nights, right? He's like, no, my brain needs the energy. My brain needs the energy. I'm like, dude, like, your brain doesn't burn that much calories, right? Like, it burns calories, but not that much. And then we actually brought it back to the point where it was actually when he was a kid and he was up late at night. And then his grandmother would scold him for eating at night every single time he did it. And this is like he's about like 40 something years old. This is way back then when guys like us, we used to get beat for the stuff that we did bad and all that kind of stuff. So it was, she would like bring this trauma to him. And then what happened was, as a result of that, he just reacted because he actually is against authority. So he rebels by eating food. He rebels by eating at night. And we can't get to that unless we know exactly what the root cause of like the behaviors of what they're doing. So I think that's like the two parts of the mind. We have to understand where they see themselves, how they see themselves, and then also what causes and what drives the behaviors in the first place.
Nice. So Dan, you mentioned like doing the work, right? Like this all happens if we're doing the work. And Dave and I, when we're talking, like in previous podcasts, we always talk about being consistent versus being intense, because there's only so much intensity that your body can handle. There's only so many habits you can change at once. So when you talk about doing the work, what's step one in doing the work for most people?
Step one in doing the work is probably the most scariest step of all, is to actually see where you're at. And like any great entrepreneur, we have to know exactly where we're starting before we actually set the destination. So we get our clients to really assess their body. So we do everything from the weight to the measurements to the DEXA scans. And then once they see the DEXA scans, they are actually almost like flabbergasted at how much they have let themselves go, because the DEXA scan is going to show them exactly how far they've let themselves go, right? So number one is we have to assess where they are, right? That's probably the first step. And the next step after that is to exactly find like what kind of program can fit into their lifestyle. Like there are a couple things that we do in and around, say, like lifestyle, that if we can match our eating style to their lifestyle and make it as convenient as humanly possible, that's going to take a lot of decisions off of their brains, and that's going to make the process of losing weight a lot faster and a lot easier for them, right? And then after that, I think the workout, for me, like when it comes to the workout, this is not a problem that a lot of people really deal with. They actually kind of enjoy being physical and being active. But we want to make sure that we do a workout that facilitates both two things. Number one, we're focused on body fat loss. That's number one. The other one is, can we give them a great chance at actually increasing lean mass on their bodies? And we could do both of those things at the same time, especially if someone's like a beginner or just like restarting on their transformation program. So instead of like one step, those are kind of like three steps. And then I guess like the fourth step would be, how can we make this a sustainable part? Because like the stuff that you're doing towards building, it's kind of like a business. It's like the stuff you do towards building a business is not the same stuff you do towards scaling a business, right? So in terms of getting your body to a certain level, then in order to sustain it, it's not necessarily you can do the same things. You actually have to do different things in order to sustain the result. And I have this thing. It's like, don't focus on dropping 20 pounds in 6 weeks. Focus on dropping 20 pounds for like 1 year. And then that's where that's the true reward. That's the holy grail of everything. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to move myself to another room just to make sure like I'm not getting bothered.
You just wanted to show us your awesome house.
my residence over here. Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you very much. All right.
I love it. What are turning points you see, like, that happen in the life of entrepreneurs, like that, where they go, like, at one point you feel they come to you the most saying, shit, I got to do something about it. Like, when do they realize that they need help?
It could be a number of contexts. Number one is I have a social media channel. I have a Twitter, and what I do on that Twitter is I literally say what I would say to a client on that particular Twitter. So what happens as a result is I say something that may hit a chord with them. It could be like, one of the most controversial ones I said was like, sometimes fat shaming has a place in society. Like sometimes it actually does. Some people work good with shame and some people work good with positive reinforcement. Everybody's different in terms of how they're motivated, but sometimes it could be like something that is said that just resonates with them. Another thing could be, they've had a kid, they've had a child for like the past year, and then they're like, okay, well, I just gained 20 pounds because of this kid, so I need some help with this. Another one could be the fact that with COVID that just happened in the past year. A lot of times, like people have, like in COVID, people have gained so much stress weight. It is ridiculous, right? They have gained
39
about
pounds, I heard. The millennials,
Jeez.
39 pounds on average, apparently. That's
Yeah.
that's what the statistics said. Yeah, yeah. I
Dang.
heard that. I just heard that stat somewhere. An average
39
of
pounds.
39 pounds over the
Gosh,
past 18 months that
that's,
COVID's
that's a lot.
been thinking.
That's
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
crazy.
yeah.
Okay. So it could be the COVID stuff too. It's like, they have gained weight over the period of this, but I would say what probably the number one is, they have spent so much time building a super successful business. So, I've had guys who have just like put all like maybe like 5 years to a decade into their careers, built up this incredible freaking business, but then at the same time, they're about 30, 20 to 30 pounds overweight from where they were back in college. So they have basically traded their life or traded their health, which I would say is their life, for their business. And then after the business is, I guess you could say, not running on its own, but it has a sense of normalcy. It's not grind, grind, grind anymore. That's when they come to me, and that's when they say, "Hey, what's up? I need to pull this back. My health needs to be as successful as my business is."
I feel like there's a lot of real, and you said it with kids, and we can talk about, like how kids really impact your perception. But I feel like when you have kids, it becomes real that, oh, okay, my first of all, it's not just me. Second, my time is a lot more scarce than it used to be. And also I want to be there for the long term. I think it makes you realize that, because when you're in business and everything goes well, it feels like you don't really think, and it's just you don't really think about that. You think you're invincible in some ways. But
Yeah.
when the kids arrive and you're like, oh, I want to be there for a long time, it changes the game. It sounds so like that, like, something like a dad would say, but honestly, like, it makes you realize really like the importance of your long-term health. And I feel like a child, the welcome of a child, and you maybe you can talk about that, but changes your the way to manage yourself. So you're a new daddy, Dan. You
Yes.
have a little girl she just turned 1, right?
Yes. She just turned one yesterday. 420, baby, right there. Yeah.
How did you
Yeah.
celebrate?
Dude.
Oh,
Oh,
hey,
yeah,
no comment.
talk to
No
us about the
comment.
celebration.
No comment. But you do live in the Caribbean side, Chris. You should know. You should know
It's
how to celebrate.
it's like candy
Uh,
here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, yeah,
So I just so she just had her first birthday yesterday, and then even when she was born, there's nothing like your child being born that puts you in touch with mortality.
Mhm.
Like for me, like now I'm just like I have to be here as long as humanly possible for her. I understand the role and the importance of being a dad, right? Like you see people grow up without dads, you see people sometimes grow up without moms. You realize how important having both of those foundations is for a child's mental health, spiritual health, even sometimes physical health. And there's nothing like having a kid that makes you want to become a better person and a better man in general. So, my whole thing when my daughter came out is my goal is to see your children's and children's possible children's children, right? I would love to. I mean, that's the goal, that's the intention, and I'm going to do whatever is possible to keep my body in the best shape so I can actually have the best chance of that happening. And we all know that life is like not promised to us, right? We've all had people that have gone taken away from us at a very early, and we understand like how fragile, like we understand how we're all just like fragile plastic bags full of water, and that alone makes me say, okay, I got to push as much as possible for my business, to make us as successful and as supported as humanly possible. But at the same time, I need to be there physically. And I want this for every single one of the people I work with, because all of them have daughters, they have sons, they have people who are relying on them, they have wives. And there's nothing like having the healthiest version of yourself, and having that be the example for your kids to follow as well, right? It's like, when I first started going to the gym, I I saw my dad putting on his freaking gym bag every morning at 6 a.m. He would go to the gym, he would come back, he'd go to the gym, come back. He did this for like a year or so, and then he never said nothing to me. And then lo and behold, I start following him. I start going to the gym. I start following in his footsteps. He set the example. So the so pretty much like our we as parents are the ones that set the example for the rest of the family. And yes, the mom sets the example as well, but again, it when it comes to do you want your kid to be healthy? Do you want your kid to be successful? Do you want your kid to be happy? Well, guess what? You're the first person that they look at in regards to how that actually should look in the first place. So I see it from like the health angle. Number one, longevity. Be there as long as humanly possible. Set yourself in that position so you can do that. Number two, set the example. You are the example for your family. And those are the two things you have control, or you generally have control over, and you can't control anything else. But as long as you focus on those things, then it's almost like you're setting up the game for yourself to win.
That really speaks to one of the philosophies that we have with the guys that I work with is be the man that you want your son to grow up to be, and be the standard for which your daughter will hold other men to. And so what you said right there completely resonates. I mean, it has to be congruent. Like you can't, and there's a couple of things like you talked about fat shaming. I kind of stand with you on that, because you're not healthy and you're not taking care of yourself, and that will cause an impact not only on yourself but on your loved ones. And so I'm crossing a slippery slope here by saying this, but there's a certain amount of selfishness to that, especially if you have people that are relying on you and people that you are going to set the example for. Joe Rogan gets slandered all the time for like the whole fat shaming thing, but I mean, a lot of times it's these people that have an inability to take care of themselves, an unwillingness, not an inability, an unwillingness to take care of themselves, that are putting a strain on the health system. They're putting a strain on themselves, on their families and stuff like that. So I couldn't agree with you more. And it is a very slippery slope, because it's difficult to.
It's difficult to talk about now, right?
Yeah.
Because guess what's happening now? Like, it's almost like our emotions are overriding what is actual and factual, right? And emotions are good. It's great to feel them, but again, if it works, man. Like, the reason I changed, I mean, I'm not going to say this works for everybody, but the reason I got myself in shape was because my friends reamed me out for having man boobs, right? they're my best friends and they cared about me the most.
Yeah.
And they reamed me, like they made fun of me, all this stuff. Not saying this works for everybody, but again, it's like, if you're not being told the truth, and that's usually what jokes are, is telling you the truth in a very loving way. If you're not being told the truth and people are scared to tell you what the truth is, then it's almost like you created this lie for yourself. This world where no one can tell you exactly what you need to hear.
But that's exactly where we are right now. We live in a triggered world. Every phrase is triggered. If you say the wrong pronoun by accident, it's triggered. Somebody's easily offended every single time. If you say that you're keto or that you're carnivore in front of a vegan, they get offended.
Hell yeah.
Even though it's your own personal choice. Like, there's so many triggers right now. It's unbelievable.
I have this thing where I say, like, we choose, like, you say you're offended, cool. You chose to get offended. It is not something I said. It's not something I did. It's actually the way in which you perceived it.
Exactly. It's very Buddhist, right? Everything is neutral. The charge you put on it is based on you and your opinion.
It's what's happening inside of you. And I know we're taking this off on a little bit of a tangent, but
no, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. And it is exactly how you see the world. When you're told one thing, you perceive it in a specific way, then that is actually the inner world of what's happening inside of you, right? So, sometimes like my clients, they'll be like, okay, well, I had one beer and then uh, I thought I just like fucked it up. And that's why I had a whole pizza afterwards. And that to me is like, okay, well, do you not necessarily see exactly what's happening here, right? Like there is a level of perfectionism inside of you, a level of all or nothing that is happening that's a reflection inside of your world. And maybe that's great for you that in regards to what's happening in your business. But when it comes to say food choices, when it comes to getting offended and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't necessarily work that way. It doesn't necessarily help in that sense, you know?
Yeah, we live in a sensitive world.
Yeah.
I had a rant about it that we can actually talk about it in another podcast like fully, but I had a rant about it like with last week that things are taken. You can take anything out of context and make other people fucking stone you like publicly because you said something. I'm like, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking about it. I was like, holy shit. I could have like I would probably have died like a dozen times, like looking at all the stuff that I did in the 80s and 90s, like when I was an immature young man.
Yeah.
Like really.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
Yeah.
I would have been canceled forever.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
seriously, like it's the stuff that we said, the stuff that we did, the stuff that was socially acceptable. Like even Dan mentioned it before, like with the guy and his grandmother when his grandmother used to beat him. Like I used to get beat all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Asians, man. Yeah, I don't know if it happened with Caucasians, but we got beat. That was like way back then. Now it don't happen anymore. But I think about this and I'm like, hey, look at us. We turned out great. We did great.
I'm just carrying that heavy trauma on my shoulder every day, but I'm fine.
Just crying on a
every
daily
time I see a
basis, but
slipper, I just like get the
yeah.
shakes. But
Just gets-
But,
I'm okay.
but that's the thing. I think and bringing back to the trauma part, and I believe, and I love what you said is that I believe that trauma, and when we talk about trauma, it doesn't need to be something like major, but it could be like little thing like what you said with the grandmother, like
Yeah.
these type of examples,
Yeah.
right? That, in my opinion, is what prevents people, especially entrepreneurs, to just like go to that next level, to just hit that ceiling. They can be very smart with what they're doing, but they're going to hit that ceiling because of that shit. And they don't even, the more you go, the less you realize you're doing these things because of things that happened when you were like 7 years old, right? It just becomes part of who you are. And I feel like when you reach that age where you have kids, you realize your own mortality and you realize that things need to be changed. You still carry that trauma, and the fact that now we're actually preventing all kind of trauma to happen forces you, like, you will be fucked up anyway.
Yeah.
You will, and the thing is that it doesn't open the door to self-awareness, understanding why we do things, because we have no idea what to do, in the world. That's what I'm scared of for, the rest, like the future, especially with the kids now, like, not giving grades to the kids, not ranking them. Like, what good is that going to be? Like, everybody's going to be average because I'm scared that the one that's not as smart, or,
well, even
like,
from
if
a
my kid
parental
is,
perspective, like there are so many parents that are trying to be their kids' best friends, and you're not going to set up a functioning citizen of like society if you're constantly giving your kids everything and you're protecting them all the time. If you're constantly putting them in a bubble, I mean, for lack of a better term, because we're in COVID right now, but like if you're constantly putting them in a bubble and protecting them, I mean, we deal with that right now in the community projects that Rosanna and I deal with, like, or that we've started here. It's like all of these kids here they've never been told no. They've been giving everything that they want. I don't know if it's a certain guilt that some parents feel where they didn't have certain things when they were growing up, and therefore they feel the need to over provide and not allow their kids to struggle or to fail. And it's setting kids up poorly for society,
Yeah.
because the real world
Absolutely.
is not like that.
Absolutely. And we have to make this adjustment, man. At least from this angle, because our lives are just getting more and more comfortable, right? And we are just becoming more and more coddled as a society. And we have to make sure that us as fathers and as men and as leaders, we have to understand where the world's going and how exactly do we want our world to be. And it is not about removing conflict or removing, these hard things from people's lives, because that's actually how they learn. That's how they become better. Like that's how they become human. And then it's mostly the people who have actually suffered the most who are the ones that are the most hardened. These are the guys that actually see things like they're like there's like people who say like, well, fuck your emotions. Like facts don't care about your emotions. Like that's kind of like that's kind of like where I want to be kind of maneuvering my family and at least them. For me, I think that the more comfortable we are, the more we're just going to go into our emotions. And even when we're going to our emotions, we're not going to see exactly the reasons for these emotions. We're just going to see them as acting into them. So if I get offended, it's because of you. It's not because of me. And I think that's what's happening in what's happening is just like we're blaming everything on everyone else. When the reality is that we got to look at ourselves. We are the ones that are eventually going to be this change. So, I love the whole Jocko Willink, mantra, which is like extreme ownership. Every single result that you have in your life is because of you. And if only people can actually adopt this a little bit more, then they can actually fix their problems instead of trying to point the finger and blame everyone else for how they're feeling.
I love that, and I think this is why, like, a lot, like coaching, especially, and especially what we are doing, why it's so necessary is that you can go and actually call out
Mm.
people on their bullshit, call out, of no, but call out like things you would not necessarily do in public, but you can do it. If I want to tell you, like, listen, dude, you're full of shit because you're saying this or doing that, and there's things that you might need to explore, which are this or that, and it's probably linked to some kind of trauma. Like, that's why I think you can separate the good to great entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
The great entrepreneur will realize that my own lack of self leadership will not make me fulfill what I can be doing as an entrepreneur. And that's why I always say, like, going to a physical transformation will open up the door to a level of self-awareness you never had before,
Yeah.
right? Your body will tell you things that your brain doesn't know.
Yeah, and this is even for my own self development. Started with my body, and I think with you guys, it kind of started with your body as well. It started with transforming your body because what happens is that you're controlling the only thing you have control over, which is the decisions you make with what goes in your mouth and how you use your body in the first place. This is the ultimate form of control. This is the ultimate form of ownership. So when people feel like they lack that self-control, it's almost like they lack mastery over themselves. It's almost like they are not able to reach their full potential as a result of not being able to control how they use their body and the foods that they put, right? So my whole thing, actually, my first starting point was transforming my body because I wanted to control what I could and not and with business, there's so many variables out there. You're trying to control everything. It doesn't work like that. You can kind of play the game and maneuver it to win it as best as possible, but sometimes these variables, they don't work out. You're trusting that you're trusting and hoping that they work out. But with your body, you have ultimate control. Like there's no one else that can make these decisions for you. You could be like, oh yeah, my wife cooked spaghetti and that's why I didn't eat. Well, dude, you could cook your own food, right? Like, it's like, don't have to
That's
eat
why
from
I
your
started
wife.
cooking.
Yeah, dude. Like,
I do all the cooking now. I've been doing all the cooking for 15 years, and that's exactly why. Because I was a bit of a control freak, and I was like, I'm not eating
yeah.
this like
Paul
donuts.
Albeck.
Yeah, none of this. Yeah, none of this greasy stuff. I'm
Yeah.
taking care of this. Yeah.
I feel the first step towards self mastery is actually the physical, right? So everyone's trying to master external. For me, I think it's the physical. I think if you have control over how you move your body, what you choose to do with it, if you have control over kind of like the foods that you choose to put into your body for fuel and performance, if you have the control over what you drink, you're drinking water instead of like soda pop and whatever. That's the first step towards self mastery. It's not about making $1 billion or anything like that. It's actually about controlling your own animal nature, right? So I feel like when people do this, it gives them so much juice for the rest of their lives because they have mastered their habits. They have mastered themselves to a large degree. And then that brings confidence, that brings energy. And again, when you get your body in shape, you're just going to feel good about yourself. You're going to have more energy. You're going to not be carrying around a 20-pound weight vest on you everywhere that you go, and you're just going to feel great. So that's why I actually think like getting healthy is that number one meta habit. It's both from a self mastery aspect, but it's also from a, hey, guess what? Like, this is going to make every single area of your life easier aspect.
Nice.
I love it, my man. Transforming your body. I mean, and I talk about it in the Done by Noon book. Is really like when young, especially when young entrepreneurs, before they actually form bad habits with their health, is like, where do I start? It's like, transform your body. It's going to teach you everything you need to do to everything you need to become a good, sustainable entrepreneur. Everything from discipline to organizing yourself to time management to energy management to load management to everything. And entrepreneurship is a sport, and this is, in my opinion, like the transforming your body will require you to do things that are hard for a long time, and doing that while managing, your workload, your time, your energy, your attention, in a way that's sustainable and that's right. So I think it's too bad that many entrepreneurs realize that too late in their process. And it's not easy, even if you know it. I mean, for me, for example, personally, many times I fell into bad habits. I fell into bad habits induced by extreme entrepreneurial behaviors, right? And I think even though we're self-aware, we need someone to call ourselves on our bullshit and bring us back on the right track, even though we know, like, you can get corrupted along the way. That's a problem.
I think you should treat your body much like you treat a business, right? So if you're the CEO of your body, right, and you see this leaky system over here, you're gonna go and fix it, right? It's like something's happening with sales, like the conversions aren't really popping. Then you're gonna go in and you're gonna be like, all right, what the fuck do we gotta do? Let's actually clean this up, right? Or you could be, it's basically just being like the owner of the business of your body. And if we think about it, it's like, okay, number one is business plan. You create a plan for your body. Number two is you always assess, you always manage your details, you always manage the metrics that matter to you, right? Number three is you're always growing. So when you hit a weight loss goal or whatever it is, you're going to set the next goal, like the next level of growth, and there's never not enough growth that you can actually have with your body in terms of what goals that you set with it. I think if entrepreneurs actually look at their business and ask themselves, or look at their bodies and ask themselves, okay, well, am I running in the red or am I running in the black? Am I actually having $1 million performance body, or am I actually trying to? I'm not going to make any example with that. Am I trying to? Anyways, I don't want to get myself into trouble with like that, but
Change the name.
yeah. I was gonna say have a shanty town of a body or something like that. But I agree with you that entrepreneurs are literally like the mental athletes of our generation, right? We look at Elon like we looked at Michael Jordan. We look at Bezos like we look at freaking whatever it is, Larry Bird, or like these guys we look to as like stars. But at the same time, in order for their minds to actually work at full efficiency, the bodies are the ones that actually has to support it. That's the thing. It's like you can't necessarily think that you're a smart person if you don't exercise.
Well, actually, training
Right?
makes you smarter. Like
It
there are so
makes
many neurological studies coming. I'm doing a deep dive in neurology right now, just because it interests me. And there are so many studies that are citing how much more creative people are when they move, how much more productive they are when they exercise, just because of that cross-lateral neurological connection between the right and the left hemisphere of the body and the right and left hemisphere of the brain, and having that connection. So when you move, like there was a study that I just read where they had kids move before an exam. It was in like Sweden or something like that, and they did a study of like making kids do like just a simple cross crawl or going out and play. And the kids that went out and played and then came in to write the exam did so much better than the kids that studied for the equal amount of time and tried to cram everything in. Like, it was insane. So movement is essential in even to make you a better entrepreneur, because part of the whole entrepreneurial journey, or our job as an entrepreneur, is to be able to solve problems creatively. And you're not going to be able to have that creativity if your body is not in check, if you don't take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And I had this thing. It's like, so I started like since getting to Costa Rica, I started surfing in the morning, like 6 a.m. dawn patrol. When I come back, I'm the most calmest person in the world, but my brain is on fire. Like I get into creation mode right away. I take my shower, get into creation mode right away. I am typing like there is no tomorrow. So exercise is one of those things. It's almost like nitrous for your brain. When you do exercise, you go off and you do an actual mental task. What's going to happen is that you're going to find yourself just like going crazy. You can't even stop. And there's actually a book about this. It was called Spark, I believe. And they had this, actually one of the best and smartest schools in the world. They actually start their days with physical activity. They don't do any math. They don't do any philosophy, whatever it is. They start their days by doing these runs or doing some sort of physical activity. And what happens is guess what? They're one of the top 10 smartest schools in the nation, in all the United States. So I don't think a person is smart if they don't exercise. I really don't. Like, you can't be that smart if you don't exercise, because you're basically leaving about 40% of your brain power because of the fact that your body is lagging behind. And once that body actually starts, and from my experience, once the body starts correlating with what they're trying to do, when they start getting it healthy, I've seen it so many times. They hit their biggest income months, right? When people get in shape, like almost every single client, they hit their biggest income month. They make the most money they've ever made. Number two, they are having the most sex that they've ever had, with their wives. They're more intimate with their wives. Number three, when they get home, guess what happens? They are playing with their kids. They're not lying on the couch eating a bag of Cheetos. They're actually engaged with their kids. And they're not like trying to lie down, oh, baby, give me like 2 more minutes or whatever it is. It's like literally they have enough energy to get home, spend the time with their wife and kids, and then be able to go to sleep at a normal time. So yeah, man, exercise is literally, it literally does so many things: energy, antidepressant, mood booster, whatever it is. And if people aren't doing it, then they're leaving gains on the table, and they're not necessarily being the best entrepreneurs that they can be.
I love it. Exercising will make you a smarter entrepreneur, guys.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
The research is there.
Yes, sir.
Dan, so to learn more about what you do, you have a great podcast that came out, I think, last month.
Yes, came out last month, and yeah, man, having fun with it right now. And it's called The High Performance Founder. My whole thing with that podcast is to actually reach as many entrepreneurs as possible, because I want to affect the world, but in a very different way. If I change, let's just say like I changed your life, Dave, right? You have access to hundreds of thousands of people. So if I make your life better, guess what? Whose life is going to get better as a result? Hundreds of thousands of your audience. Mm-hmm. They are all going to get better because you're just operating at full capacity. So my whole thing is, with this particular podcast, we want to help as many entrepreneurs as possible. That's going to help us help as many people as we can, because their own intelligence and whatever they do in terms of creativity is always going to come back to the people that they're serving.
And if people want to work with you, are tired of being great at entrepreneurship but sucking at their health, how can they reach you?
They can go to highperformancefounder.com, and there's an application there, or they could go to highperformancefounder.com/apply, and they can they can do the application. And then from there, we shall talk and we'll make it happen.
I got to be careful, people. You might be totally mesmerized by Dan's beautiful hairdo.
Right.
Dan Go is known for, even there's no such, Dan doesn't have bedhead. He wakes up with a perfect hair wave.
It's the source of all my powers, guys. Literally, this is where I gain This in my body, this is where all the power comes from. All right.
So there you go. You're not only going to transform your body, you're not going to be only transforming your health and your business, but also he will show you his secrets to flawless hair.
Hair transformation. All right. That's the that's the upsell right there. All right. Man. There we go.
My man, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being on the call. I can't wait to see you again, man. It feels like it's been a while. Haven't been able to go to Toronto like in a long time, and but next time it's a date, brother.
Yeah.
Have fun in Costa Rica. Be careful of all the be careful with all the bugs that are coming out right now.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Tarantulas, Dave. Tarantulas,
man. Tarantulas.
Oh God, don't. Like one of my friends just actually, his daughter got. It's in the hotel. Her daughter got a freaking her. She was about to put on her shoe. She feels this little clickety click sound. Clickety click, right? She shakes her shoe. A scorpion falls out.
Oh yeah.
And we're just. Where are we? This is literally like Jumanji down here, but the waves are great, so I'm gonna stay. At least for the time being. Goddamn the bugs, but I'm gonna stay. All right.
Are you surfing a lot?
I'm surfing like twice a day, man. Twice a day. Yeah, twice a day. And it's getting big down here. I don't know if the swell's coming down to your side, but it's getting like 8-9 feet. And I am not surfing right now. Yeah, I'm definitely not surfing because it's that whole mortality thing. It's like, hey, if I was younger, I'd be like, caution to the wind, let's fucking do it. But now I have a daughter, I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, it's too big, there's a chance, you start thinking, like, as we have more responsibilities, it's hard for us to take a little bit more of these physical chances and risks with our bodies, if that makes any sense, right? We're not going to be jumping off 20-foot ledges anymore because we're like, oh shit, I have a wife and kid back home. I'm not going to do that. They need me back there. So anyways, yeah, I'm surfing twice a day. It's freaking awesome. Great, man. Yeah. If you find yourself down in my town, please come. I'm thinking like maybe next year I'll take the trip down to Puerto Viejo and then do the big visit. Maybe this trip, who knows?
Always welcome, man. You're always welcome.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah.
All right, my friends, have a great week. Lopez, we'll talk to you. We'll talk very soon. And well do, brother.
Of course.
Take care, guys.
Okay, man.
You have just listened to the Done by Noon podcast. If you are interested in hearing more, do not hesitate to subscribe to our channel. Click on the 5 stars or check out our free tools and trainings at donebynoonpodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and stay awesome. We'll see you next time.